It is Tuesday, July 1st, around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You are listening to the All 32 Pod, a proud member of the CLNS Media Network. And, of course, brought to you by the #1 daily fantasy sports app, Prizepicks. Download today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 off your first 5. Prizepicks running your game. He is Will Parkinson. I am Mike Giardi. A massive trade in the end of June doesn't really happen very often. Most teams have their rosters pretty well set. There's a few free agents floating around, but it happened with the Dolphins, with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith, and a 2027 7th-round pick goes to Pittsburgh for Minkah Fitzpatrick, the free safety, formerly a Miami Dolphin, and a 2027 5th-rounder. Will, the instant reaction is, okay, once again, Pittsburgh's telling you they're all in, right? Yeah. But are they?
Yeah. Here's my only issue with the Steelers. I saw a tweet over the weekend, or yesterday, I guess, I believe. I think Billy M91, he's been actually a guest on my other show, tweeted the big-time 2011 Eagles, 2024 Jets vibes, and it's hard not to agree. They're all in, but I don't know if they're all in. Do you feel any better about them because they made this trade? I don't feel like that. I'm wow, they're so much better now.
Right. Well, before we break down what has actually happened here, I just immediately turned to TJ Watt, who we've talked about for months. We talked about him at the end of the season, and maybe it was time to move on. They keep saying they want to keep him, want him to be a Pittsburgh Steeler for life. He's not happy with the contract he has, and obviously, based on the money some of the defensive ends, edge rushers have gotten, feels like he needs to be given a raise or an extension, however they want to work it. So you sign Rodgers, you trade for DK Metcalf, you do this deal. You've really pushed a lot of chips on the table, but yet your best player on defense, and even though he tailed off again at the end of the season last year, he's still your best player. If he's not taken care of and he's not on the roster, and now we're getting the reports, right? Schefter saying, hey, multiple teams are sniffing around, making phone calls, preparing to maybe make an offer for TJ Watt. Watt didn't show up to mandatory minicamp as he sort of held his holdout. It's well, are you really in if you're taking your best player on defense and saying, well, he's going to be out?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I think it'll get done eventually. I'm sure the Steelers are sitting there going, TJ Watt's been phenomenal for us. But it's hard to get in the business of, we said this with the Browns. It's are you guys in the right window? They're obviously, again, they have to be all in. You have to pay TJ Watt. But I just don't, again, I don't know. The timing doesn't make sense. Why was this not done 2 months ago? And now you're sitting there going, you're not trading him. That's absurd. He's not going anywhere. And then, I already got a bunch of the comments. Should this team go looking at TJ Watt? It's no, right. No, they shouldn't. I just, if you depends on what you believe of, Ricky Scoops, the guy, he's the bear on Twitter, and he's been more right than not. And God knows where that information is coming from. But, when they start leaking, when you start hearing, oh, this team's listening to offer, in what world are the Steelers trading TJ Watt? Maybe they will. That's be insane to me. But we're 3.5 weeks out from training camp starting. Why is, maybe it gets done and it's done in the next week or two and it's no big deal. But this kind of feels, again, I keep bringing back the Jets from last year. You can say what you want about the way it panned out. The Jets trade for Hassan Reddick, not that he's the same player as TJ Watt. Same thing, 30-year-old edge rusher, a guy that's been extremely productive, all pro. Again, different scenarios. The Jets were you got to be in camp for us to pay you. TJ Watt is probably doing the same thing. Hassan Reddick's I'm not reporting until you pay me. So the whole thing just feels weird. I don't know. It's we trade George Pickens to get DK Metcalf. We trade Minkah Fitzpatrick to get Jalen Ramsey. It's you're just swapping players that are arguably the same level as each other. And it doesn't – I don't know. I don't feel I feel like they're all in without being all in. They're all in to be 10-7. That's what I'm getting the vibe of.
Well, and we know that's under Tomlin, that's the 9-8, 10-7.
Is that the goal these days? Is that it's the Yankees making the playoffs, right? The Steelers used to be in the business, the championships. Now they're in the business of wild card first round losses.
Well, I think Watt's position gets strengthened because what do they do when they make the trade? They turn around and give Ramsey $1.5 million raise for this season.
Why? What are we doing?
I want to get further into Ramsey and just all that's been around him for multiple years now. They also turn around and give Jonnu Smith, who's basically been a very productive, with the exception of the 2 years in New England, but he's had 3 really solid seasons of the last 5. The 2 years in New England were the wasteland. He couldn't figure out the offense. They didn't know how to use him, etc. They gave him an extension for 1 year and $12 million. So like he got his money, Ramsey got his little bump, and TJ Watt, again, long tenured, incredibly productive leader of the football team, is sitting there on the sideline going, look, you've got to bump me. You've got to give me this raise. I get not wanting to go to the Myles Garrett. Myles is 29. This actually kind of feels like, and they're different organizations. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Cincinnati and how they handle their contract business. But what they're doing with Trey Hendrickson is sort of the same thing to me, at least in the sense of you're on the wrong side of 30. We're not real anxious to give you a 3-year extension at 35 per or something like that, which makes a lot of sense. However, in both cases, Cincinnati is in. They have to be with the quarterback and the money they're paying their wide receivers. And Pittsburgh, based on just the sheer age of their roster is ancient. However, built, quote unquote, to win now, because when it's over, what's left? There's not a lot behind what they have. They're going to be bargain bin basement shopping.
Did they not give Cam Hayward an extension at age 35 9 months ago? Like, that's what I'm saying. This doesn't make sense. You can't be the team that's like, there is teams in the NFL, and we've seen a bunch of them, that are like, hey, man, running back, you get to 28 or 27. Like, yep. We've, usually they move off the old Belichick, you move off a year early before it's a year too late.
He stopped doing that, by the way, which may have contributed. Which may have contributed to the roster decline.
But the point being, like, they don't do that though. They actually do the opposite. They just gave DK all this money too. Like, they gave Rodgers more money than they needed to give Rodgers. Yeah. And again, like I'm not trying to just be like super negative here. I don't understand. First of all, by the way, Minka and Tomlin must have been in a real bad spot for to go out of your way to get Jalen Ramsey at this point in his career, who brings, by the way, we know, Mike, at the end of the year, there was a lot of Tyreek stuff. There's a lot of Jalen Ramsey stuff too. And from everything you read, it kind of felt like those two were like, you're picking one of us. And they so far have picked Tyreek. Are you worried all this is where this is going to the dam breaks eventually, Mike T? And I felt like this with Rex Ryan back with the Jets days. There was that 3-year stretch where they were acquiring personalities. It was like, this is so impressive that they're able to be successful and good with the cast of characters that are in here. And eventually it sometimes feels like it gets too much. And I always bring it back to baseball, but like the Red Sox and the Yankees both experience it. Sometimes it's like Alex Cora and Terry Francona can only handle so many like guys that don't really want to play hard on Sundays. But the point being, is this where the dam breaks? Because is he going to DK Metcalf, by the way, and Jalen Ramsey hate each other when they're on the field. Like, there's just a lot of explosiveness in that room, and I don't know if I don't know. I don't really get the vision personally.
Look, at those positions, corner and wide receiver, you're not generally, those guys aren't leaders, right? They're on their own island. We've the quote unquote diva like behavior. That's just sort of that position. They're both really
vocal.
Yeah, very vocal. There's some volatility, especially with
Metcalf. Is that a good demonstrative? I feel like
absolutely, and volatile for Metcalf. I mean, Metcalf loses his mind on the football field. He's not Pickens, who lost his mind on the football field multiple times a game, but there's some of that too there. It is going to be a challenge for Tomlin. And look, he's been doing this for a long time. He had to manage. We've talked to Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, Roethlisberger was a pain in the butt, like all those sorts of things. He's with Rodgers, with Metcalf, with Ramsey.
And even Cam Hayward, I feel like, was very vocal about like the Rodgers stuff pissing him off. And
I didn't like it. But then what happens? What happens is if you really wanted to, Fields didn't want to stay, Russell's gone, and it's like, oh, Mason Rudolph? Like, then Cam Hayward says to himself, I mean, if something happens to Aaron and Mason has to play, that's one thing. But if we're going into the year thinking that Mason Rudolph is the guy, then hey, maybe you should ask if other teams want me. Like maybe it's time for me to leave Pittsburgh. because it is complicated. I did want to. Well, there's so many different parts to pick apart. Let's go to Ramsey. So in moving him, Miami saves $9.9 million doing it after June 1st with the trade on the 16.7 for the cap hit. I guess they are picking up some of that money, but whatever. Getting him gone. He's a 3-time All-Pro, but it feels like in the last 2 years, maybe even more than that, and I think we've touched on this a bit, he's more about the reputation of who he was versus the player that he is. Not that he's a bad player. He's not. And he might be well-equipped to move from corner and play more safety going forward. And maybe that's part of the plan when you consider they have Darius Slay, they sign. They have Porter Jr., who's definitely going to start. They have Bishop as the nickel. So they have some pieces there. But he just signed an extension with the Miami Dolphins right before the 2024 season. So this is his 4th team. This will be his 10th season. Guys like this who are so talented shouldn't move this much. They do move this much because he is, as you mentioned, volatile, demonstrative, pain in the ass, whatever. He seems to rub every place wrong. And this is just another example of rubbing a place wrong. Now going to Pittsburgh, where maybe you get that new feel, new team, Tomlin's going to treat me like a man sort of thing, whatever. I'm sure there's going to be some great quotes, by the way, from him at various points during training camp or whatever. Like when he zings Mike McDaniel, you just bank on it.
Yeah.
When he zings Tyreek
Fangio will catch a couple shots for no reason.
100%. Does this help? You mentioned swapping out Fitzpatrick, who hasn't played well at all the last couple of years, just one interception over the last 2 years. Swapping him out for Ramsey. If you did that in a vacuum, never mind the personalities, do you like it for Pittsburgh? Just that part of it?
I just have going back and forth. I'm like, what's the upside is that you get? Are they going to play him at safety? Are they going to play him in the nickel, like in a nickel spot? Are they going to play him outside? Like I saw a lot of people. Oh, this is the best corner room in the league now. I saw a lot of that. I saw a lot of
age in that corner room.
Yeah, I use. There's a good. The infamous Drewski. It's for anyone under the age of like 60, have no idea what I'm talking about. But he's Vince Wilfork. He's in a Vince Wilfork uniform in a hallway chasing somebody and laughing, and it's like this is what it's going to look like. Just like a really slow old whatever. Over the cap. I think me and you are both huge fans of Jason. He usually evaluates every player's contract, and Ramsey's one of the worst valued contract versus what they're actually played like in 2024. Ramsey played like a $10 million corner. He's paid like a $26 million corner. 31 years old. If he moves to safety, I like the move better. Sure, maybe it's a 1 year. We're going all in for this year. We gave him the raise. He has no guaranteed money, guaranteed salary, I should say, after this year, although they're going to have to work through some other stuff on that deal because he's owed over $100 million in cap. Like there's some jumbling that will be going on. I don't hate it because I think I mentioned this at the topic. Minka, I felt this like in 2022. It's starting to be. He had some really weird comments. The Jets played there, and he frankly did not play well at all. And they lost to Zach Wilson, so at home. So take that for what it is. And he had a lot of comments of like, "This is BS," blah blah. And it started to be. I was like, "Wow, Minka's pretty mouthy." Like I don't know if I ever really quite realized that. And that was almost 36 months ago. So obviously it got more and more to the point where maybe it's just, can we get Jalen for 17 games to buy in, kind of what the Rams went with. And Jalen was a top tier player at that point. But the point being like, McVay's like, I'll get him to control him for a year. And then like whatever happens after that, it is what it is. Obviously Stafford gets hurt and the rest is history. But yeah, I guess so. I don't hate it for them in that aspect of, hey, we have to be all in. And like the only way we can make these salaries work and all these different things. And we're going to bet on Jalen's football IQ is really high. I'll use the one thing I would worry about, though, is if you are going to play him outside, go watch Garrett Wilson's tape when he's played Jalen Ramsey. It's really bad. Like he looks totally cooked. I'm not saying he always looks like that, and it's not just Garrett Wilson, but I've seen Garrett go against Surtain and these other guys, and it's not always like Garrett's just dominating them. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers was anywhere near good Aaron Rodgers last year, Gary would have had 400 yards against them in that first Miami game. It was ugly. So long story short, I don't hate it for them if he's going to play safety. But if he's going to play outside corner and you're just going to say, hey, Jalen at this age, Joey Porter Jr. is going to hold the whole time on the other side. Or even if he's not holding, he's playing really physical. Like week to week, I'm not sure what you're getting, and there's different matchups. I just don't love the room as much as everybody else. And I don't know, Mike, I watched the Eagles last year, and I felt like the one way you could get at them was Darius Slay was going to get beat. Yeah. And he's a great player, and he's an awesome dude and all that stuff. The three of those names are really awesome. I don't know if on the field week to week. Jamar Chase is licking his chops right now. He is. Yeah. I'm sorry. I just think he is.
32-year-old corners, which is what Darius Slay will be this year. Track record's not awesome. Just saying. Like maybe they look at it and say, maybe they look at it and say Ramsey and Slay on the outside as a combo platter. Porter on one side, those two on the other side, maybe some safety, as we mentioned with Ramsey. And you can sort of hiding is not the right word because you don't give the guy a raise on what he already had thinking you're going to hide him. But it'll be interesting to see the fit. I actually think the best part of this deal for either side is the Jonnu Smith piece. Because Arthur Smith, this is the third time the two of them have been together, and he's had his best and most productive seasons under Smith until last year when he blew up in Miami. Had 88 catches, a career-high 8 touchdowns. But Arthur loves him, knows how to use him, had him in Tennessee, had him in Atlanta, now gets him in Pittsburgh. And you combine him with Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, the massive human being, more tackle than tight end, but still someone they use in routes. They used a ton of 13 personnel last year, I think the most in the league, 163 snaps. So you've upgraded there with the type of player that he is. And now he's a movable piece to them.
He was really good last year.
When you look at their receiver room, they brought in Metcalf. They sent out Pickens. That receiving room is not great. There's not Calvin Austin
isn't moving you.
Roman Wilson, who I still hold out some, I haven't sold my stock yet, but you have to wonder. So now you're looking at, hey, maybe they're just going to really embrace the 2 and 3 tight end sets and try to work their passing game that way. And considering Aaron doesn't love to throw the ball down the field, I don't know. To me, this is well worth that part of the deal.
Yeah, they're going to have to get creative with how they use Jonnu. I wanted to also, I hate to correct you on this. Darius Slay's going to be 35 by the end of the season, the regular season.
Okay.
I
wrote down 32.
I was like, for some reason, I went back and looked. I'm like,
35 is a long way from 32.
Jalen Ramsey will be 32 in season, and Slay will be 35. Cam Hayward will be 37. TJ Watt will be 31. It's not a young. Rodgers will be 68. It's not a young team. I guess the one thing I'm interested with how the Steelers employ their offense is, and we talked about this when Rodgers was acquired. There's ways it could work, but he has to be like, I'm going to run the offense that's called. And I just don't know if that's going to happen. And I hate to sound like I'm being negative about Rodgers. It's not even about that he's not a good player and he's whatever. It's nothing to do with that stuff.
Dude, you're not talking negative. It's track record.
Track record is last year and the last couple of years, even under LaFleur, who's one of the best OCs in the league. He was like, I don't want to run motion. I don't like motion. I don't want to do these things. And guess what? The funny thing is, the 2 years he embraced it, he won the MVP. They were the 1 seed, all these different things. Then he kind of went a little rogue. They looked like crap. And he goes to the Jets, and obviously we saw it happen. Jonnu can be a really useful piece. It's depending on, again, how Arthur Smith's able to balance what Aaron likes to do, which is sit and pistol, scan the field, change plays a lot, and do these different things, which can work at times. He can certainly still get you at times. You turn on the Texans tape in other games, there'll be those moments where you're like, wow, he still can see a defense better than anybody in the league. There's other times where he's going to get lost because he doesn't want to really move around and get hit as much as he used to, which is totally fair. Those are where I'm going to be curious of how they use Jonnu Smith and DK Metcalf, where Aaron doesn't really love to throw the ball to the tight end, and he doesn't love to throw the ball down the field anymore. It's a lot of playing the game in a 10 by 10 box. if you will, where Jonnu can be really effective.
100%.
But you have to, like, I'd love to have Jonnu in motion and Freiermuth and, run 13 personnel and use Jonnu basically. And DK is like, dude, we can beat you up in the run game with Freiermuth and Washington and DK. Like, we can really punish teams, even if I don't love the O-line. And I think Arthur Smith wants to do that. Like, his core is like, we want to punch you in the mouth and run a lot of tight end stuff and use our big physical receivers in screen games and different things and these long elongated boot plays. And they have potential to work. It's just about like how they mesh this together in a really short time. There's a lot of new pieces. Quarterback's new. There's a new O-lineman. There's new tight ends. There's new receivers. There's new running backs. There's just a lot that needs to blend together very quickly. And camp's not the way it used to. It's 5-6 weeks now. It's not 2-3 months. So it'll be interesting to see that.
Yeah. When Belichick, when they signed Jonnu Smith in free agency heading into the 2021 season, he had quoted they played him during the year, and he said he's one of the best, if not the best, tight ends with the ball in his hands after catch. Like, yeah. I mean, again, we never really saw that in New England. You saw it last year in Miami. He's a pain in the ass. He moves really well. That 10-by-10 box, he might be catching a lot of crossers and then here's a 4-yard completion, go make it into 10. I like that, though. I like that part of the acquisition. Before we get into the Miami side, I want to remind you that Prizepicks is the best place to get real money sports action. Over 10 million members, billions of dollars in award winnings. Prizepicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot up to win 2,000 times your cash. All you got to do is download the app, use the code CLNS to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, run your game. I couldn't help but think, and we've been on this Miami train about McDaniel could be the first, I had him on the hot seat. Yeah. Now everybody seems to be like, there's a lot of hot seats talk about him now. He's got to be wondering, what's our vision here, Bobby Greer, the general manager, who should also be very firmly on the hot seat, because we're peeling away pieces, and the pieces you're bringing me back, they don't feel as good as the pieces I had. We didn't fix the offensive line. The defense keeps peeling off its best players. It was 2 years ago, it was Christian Wilkins. This past year is Javon Holland. Like, what are they? I can't help but think he is literally treading water right now. And he's got a lot of friends in the business. He's gonna get snapped up quick as an assistant somewhere probably. Yeah. But this feels like this goes wrong quickly, which it could very well go wrong quickly, that he could be out of a job in October. Yeah, so Minkah was, he wasn't all pro in 2022, by the way. I just noticed the cracks a little bit with that. He was getting very. Yeah. He hasn't he was known for being around the ball, a ball hawk. That the last 2 years that has completely stopped.
He started getting hurt, obviously as well.
And he was whining.
Yeah. So I think I go back to this and I think about this in a lot of sports. I always hark back, and I use baseball as an example. 2016 Yankees were horrendous. They were not a good team, but they were a lot of ways they reminded me of the Dolphins, where a team that was all in, and it's like all these big contracts, these big names, guys that have value still, even if they're not maybe quite the same player. Like Carlos Beltran in wasn't that good still in 2016. He was a good player, but of course beat them in 2017, but cheating. But the point being, instead of sitting there and going we can maybe potentially squeak into the playoffs, they were like, for the first time ever, we're just going to blow it up. And we're in a competitive rebuild, and we're going to go with the young guys, and we're going to get a bunch of value for these guys. And we're going to kind of make it so we don't have this elongated slump. I don't feel like the Dolphins are doing that. And I don't know why around draft time, in a draft that I thought was really deep, especially a lot of positions they're really bad at. Not only did they trade up in a trade, I love Kingsley Sumatia, but I don't love Kingsley Sumatia for what they gave up for him.
Right.
Even round one, I don't love it there. The whole thing just didn't make a lot of sense. And I feel like, why was, I know the money's better now, right? To trade Jalen Ramsey and to move Tyreek, it's better now. Don't you feel like this was a clear, hey, Mike, we extended you. We're going to put our faith in you. You worry about Tua. Everything else, let us build the rest of the roster. We're going to suck this year. maybe we won't be as bad because we think you're a good enough coach and Tua is a good enough player to win some early games, and maybe we actually win 8 or 9 games and whatever. We're going to move all this money off of Tyreek, Ramsey, you name it. Teron Armstead's going to retire. We're going to get rid of Jonnu because it's just the timelines aren't matching up. We're going to acquire all this draft capital, even if it's day 2 picks and day 3 picks. We're going to go all in this youth movement, and we're going to reset the clock on a quarterback who's in their mid-20s or mid to late 20s. Instead, they were like, hey, we still think we can compete, but then we're not going to actually compete with any of the guys that everyone thinks. And again, they're right for moving off Jalen Ramsey. You also just took on Minkah Fitzpatrick, who, I know you drafted him, and that's, he loves it, that he loved it there, and the whole thing. We can do that whole song and dance, and again, I get it. But Minkah, again, the numbers, not bad. There's no real guaranteed money left. He's still going to make $21 million this year. It's not like – and you think that Minkah's not going, hey, I'm 29, and I'm a multiple-time All-Pro, and you drafted me. You should pay me more. I'm sure that's what he's going to have the conversation of, I want guaranteed money for the next 2 years, which is the same mistake they just made with Jalen Ramsey 12 months ago. So I just don't know the vision. And if you're going to blow it up, then blow it up. And if you're going to go all in, keep those guys and say, sorry, man, we come to the deadline and we still don't like it, we'll move you. But right now we need you to be all in. I feel like they're just in between two spots. And I think that's the worst place to be, is we don't know what we are and we're just throwing crap at the wall, which, again, as I'm sure we'll hit on in a second, but trading for Darren Waller, who has no interest in playing football. I know it's a 7th-round pick, but Darren Waller was a huge distraction 2 years ago with the Giants. And I feel like he was really frustrating to watch. He cost them a Bills game where they were, their season went to crap after that. I don't know. I'm really confused at what they're doing. I think they just heard us on the show say that they're going to be terrible, and now they want to oblige by it.
Well, there's so many different people to think about. We mentioned McDaniel. I do think Mike's he's a smart guy. I think he's a good coach. I think he'll get another opportunity in this league, unless it really disintegrates here in the next couple months, and you hear stuff that you don't want to hear. If you're Tua, they moved off Flores. They gave you a guy who supported you, who's propped you up, designed a lot around you. And look, when you've been on the field, you've been pretty good. You've obviously had to deal with the injuries, but now you're sitting there going, hey, last year we created this mismatch opportunity with Jonnu. And it's for the first time in his tenure, they had a tight end that was, again, not a traditional tight end, but they had a move tight end that was pretty good. Now you've just taken it away from me. And as we've talked about and hinted about a number of times, Tyreek's a roller coaster. You don't know whether one day or the next, he's posting on Twitter, the Will Smith meme from the Prince of Bel-Air, where the whole room is cleared out and he's looking around like, where is everybody? Well, Tyreek, you might be joining them, and the way you've acted at times, seems like you want to join them. So, if you're Tua, look, he got paid. He's still got McDaniel right now, but you've got to wonder about the overall level of commitment to you, to what's happening here, and probably bracing yourself for coaching change, maybe an offense change. The whole thing's coming, and it can't be the greatest feeling in the world after, again, just a couple of years ago, that team was fully committed to him and McDaniel and the vision to go forward. And now that vision, as you mentioned, is what is it?
Half in, half out.
Yeah.
Half in, half out.
And it is. You're right. It's 100%. It's the worst place to be. Suck. Hey, the year that they were supposed to tank with Flores, then he was actually too good of a coach, and they had enough talent that they won whatever it was, 5 games. And that's when they picked Tua. There's that sort of built a foundation for a competitive team that year. And hey, there's certain guys that we can keep and trust and build off of. And now it's got to be looking around. I know there was the talk about they've changed the culture. They're changing the culture. And I forget
how do you even, that's my thing. It's all the same people in the building. That's what I don't get.
Yeah. And I forget what player it was, but somebody just said straight up, we didn't buy in to the change. Okay. So you're going to buy in this year? It's
we talk so much about the culture change in New England and in New York. It's because it's totally new. Everything got cleaned out. People upstairs, people in the training room, people in nutrition, people, and then obviously the head coach and the coordinators, which is a huge deal, obviously. New England, if you want to like argue it, got it right last year. They were like, we suck. Like, we're not going to go all in right now. Even if they tried to with little moves with Ridley, and we've talked about that a million times. At some point they were like, hey man, we just aren't good. And we're not going to be good. But like, we think guys like Ramondre and Christian Barmore will be guys that'll be here, past this year. So we'll give those guys extensions, or we'll pay those guys. And we love them. Obviously Barmore and Ramondre both we either hurt or had bad years, but we like the way they're looking for this year. And like, they're on the team and we feel good about where they're at, money wise. And I just don't, if you're New England Jets, right? We've talked so much on the show. Can one of those teams be the 7 seed? And I go, we know that people feel differently, that the Patriots can win 13 games, and other people think they're not going to be very good. There's a middle ground there, obviously. And the Jets might be bad. I don't know. But what I do know is whoever loses to Miami either once or twice is going to finish in third. That's just they're the team this year, I think. Where last year it felt like whoever loses to New England is going to end up having a much worse year. The Jets go up to New England when their season was on the line at 2 and I think they were 2-5, and it was like, hey man, we had a rough couple weeks, but Aaron's getting healthier and we're going to get this thing right. Devontae's second week there, they crapped their pants up in New England against Jacoby Brissett, and it was like, you got on here and you're like, their season's done. Like, I don't really care what happens. They had the Texans a little flurry, and then they got stomped in Arizona. It was over. Miami took care of business with New England, even if it was, it was a little dicey, but they got it done. And that's why they were able to be a competitive team till the end of the season, until they quit on their coach. And the guy who quit on them publicly is still there. And and then got arrested. I don't understand it. I really don't.
I don't either. And look,
Darren Waller was on a podcast with John Gruden talking about how he doesn't love football anymore 2 months ago. And he's a rapper and he's 33 now. What do you like? I know it doesn't matter, Mike, and it's a 7th round pick in 20,000. Like, it's fine. But what are you doing? Like, how is it helping Mike McDaniel? Maybe Darren Waller comes back and it's great, but I have a hard time believing that a guy who's had a really weird career is now going to find the love again after 2 years after a breakup and a bad rap career.
Yeah, wretched rap career. The quote that came out like 2 days ago, before this all swung into motion, was, yeah, I knew it was over for me in New York when we had a series where I was playing fullback and it was working, and we ran it like 3 times in a row. And he said, I came over to the bench after it was over and I said to myself, I don't want to be doing this shit. Like, this isn't for me.
That's the teammate we need.
Yeah, exactly. So we got to trade for that guy. Yeah, fascinating. They're the 2 teams that we'll be watching very closely, and I'm interested to see. I've already ordered my Orville Redenbacher popcorn for the Arthur Smith versus Aaron Rodgers, Arthur Smith versus DK Metcalf, DK versus Aaron. Yeah, like, it's just going to be tremendous.
I will tell you this right now too. The Jets there's a 4-game, the first 4 weeks of the season, they have 2 really, really difficult games in Buffalo and Tampa. Pittsburgh and Miami are not easy games by any means. The Jets have no easy games until they prove they can win games. Those are 2 teams that I just think those you should be starting 2-2. I really just like keep harping back to it, and not to make it about the Jets. I just aren't you sitting there going, a Steelers team that has never played together before week 1 and we're at home, there's a lot of energy in the Rodgers and the whole thing, and then you go down to Miami, and we know early in the season, yeah, it's difficult to play down there, but at the same time, we've seen this thing could get ugly very quickly, and I don't know. I wonder if that changes the win totals for like how you view the Jets and Patriots, and the Bills might win 16 games for all we know.
Here's what I'm saying, although it might be entertaining for the pod. If Rodgers throws for 320 and 3 touchdowns and completes 75% of his passes in the opener, that's going to be one hell of a show.
My face will be the color of Mike's shirt, and there'll be veins popping out of my neck like I look like I'm on TRT. That's what it's going to happen.
I'm not rooting for that, but just, there's a little part of me that if it happens, we'll see. All right, that's going to put a wrap on this show. For those listening, we ask you to subscribe to the podcast, like and leave a review. Those watching the show on CLNS, go ahead, hit the like button, subscribe to the Patriots Press Pass YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Patriot and League content. Also, please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the instant a new video drops. It is a holiday week, but we will be back later on. So keep it tuned in right here. We'll see you.